Hi again. So in this video we will dive further into what we can do with function parameters, function arguments, and we will see how we can define functions which can take arbitrary number of arguments. And why do we need this? We will see a good example at the end of the video. But basically, often we create functions which can have different behavior depending on how many arguments we will pass to it. We will see an example of plotting function which works like this. So you might find this useful, even if you don't see it right now. Just stay there. Stay there with me, and you will see at the end of the video why it can be useful, and you will definitely understand this with time when you start to program more and more in your life. So basically, as we already know, there are two types of arguments. One type is non-keyword arguments. These are positional arguments which you specify during function call without specifying the name of the parameter. And there are keyword arguments where you have to write the name of the parameter, something, equal sign, and then specify the value. So let's first have a look at non-keyword arguments, how you can create a function which can take as many non-keyword arguments as you want, but you don't specify how many arguments there will be at the beginning. To do so, we use the asterix sign, which tells Python that then here there will be unknown many positional arguments. And how it works. So we have an example here. Let's switch to Visual Studio Code to see how this example works in practice. So basically, when you define an argument with an asterix, this is an iterable for Python right now. So we can use things we have already learned in previous courses. So if this is an iterable, we can use a for loop with this iterable. So let's say we want to define a function which will multiply all of the numbers we input as arguments, but we can input 2 arguments, 3 arguments, 4, 17, as many as we want. So how should this function work? Well, first we start with our counter variables, which is first equal to 1, and then we will be multiplying this one by consecutive arguments. Now, as I said, numbers is an iterable, so we can go through this iterable using, for instance, for loop, and say for n in numbers, what we want to do is we want to multiply current result. So the first number, this is 1, multiplied by the first number we find in this iterable, then store it in the result, then go back and take second number, go back, take the third number, and so on until we go through this whole iterable. And then when we are finished with the for loop, we return the result. And here we have a line of code which prints the result of our function. Let's run this example. So Python 3 multiply.py, and we can see that the result is 2 times 4, 8, 8 times 5, 40. This is the correct result of multiplying these 3 numbers. So what happens here, Python knows that at the beginning, when we call this function, we can have as many positional arguments as the user of a function desires. So what Python does, he stores these arguments. Here there are 3. If I add some more, then there will be more arguments like this. Maybe let's put spaces here so that it's more clear. So right now we have 5 numbers here, and Python will store these numbers in an iterable. Maybe just to make it clear, these numbers, they don't have to be bigger and bigger. This one can be smaller, no problem with that. So Python will store these numbers in an iterable. We'll call these iterable numbers inside the function, and then since we define the function like this, he will go through this iterable and multiply each element by the current result, which is stored in the variable result. So here we should get first result is 1 multiplied by 2 2 times 4 8 times 5 40 times 7 it's 280, and times 3, this should be 900 without 60, so 840. Let's see if this is the result we get. Yes, it is. So as we can see, our function works correctly. So this is how we define function which can take arbitrary number of positional arguments. Now, as you remember, there is this other type of arguments, keyword arguments, which either have to, or in this case they will have to be specified with a keyword. So this is the arguments you specify by stating the name of the parameter, then equal sign, and then the value of the parameter. And similarly, like in the case of positional arguments, you might have a situation where you would like to have unspecified number of these keyword arguments. And you can do it in Python. You just use 2 asterix signs in this case, and then this iterable here will be treated as iterable with keys and values. So kind of like a dictionary, which you have already seen in our previous courses. So what's the difference right now? When we have this iterable here, Python has both keys and values in this iterable, so we can go through it like we did go through dictionaries. So basically we can still use for loop, but now we want to have both key and value. And as you probably remember, hopefully remember from dictionaries topic from previous course, we can get both key and value from a dictionary using items method. So let's have a look at this example in Visual Studio Code. What happens here, maybe I will delete this text here so that we focus on the function call. So what happens here is we define this function just like it was defined in the text, and then when we want to execute this function, we define arguments using keywords. So this argument will have a value 1 and will have a keyword 1. And notice that right now we didn't ask the user, we didn't force the user to use specific name for a parameter. Now he can use whatever names of the parameters that they want. Let's run this example and let's see what happens. Calling.py. So as you can see, when we call the function calling, actually this print is unnecessary here because the print is inside the function call, so we don't have to call this print again. So when we call this function, Python goes into the body of the function and executes a for loop and goes through these arguments as it would go through an iterable, as it would go through a dictionary. So basically it takes a key. Key for the first argument is 1, and the value for the first argument is 1, and prints, you already know the method format, prints the key as here, and then two equal signs, and then the value. So we see that 1 parameter is equal to 1, 5 parameter is equal to 5, 3 parameter is equal to 3, and so on and so on. And we can see how magic happens when we start using some other parameters. As I mentioned before, I just came up with this name, and I can say that the lecturer is Mateusz. So now if I run this function, this script, sorry, you will see that my parameter lecturer is equal to Mateusz. I can, for instance, create another variable, another parameter, which will be called number of lectures. And let's say that I want to have 1,500 lectures. Of course, you don't want these many lectures, but yet, let's say that you would like to have a parameter like this. You can add these parameters here, and everything works. So yeah, this is how you add keyword arguments, arbitrary number of keyword arguments, and this is really useful. I will show you in the next video short example how actually people use it, using an example of a plot function. A built-in plot function. We won't be writing our own plot function, so so don't worry. So thank you for your attention, and see you in the next video.